welcome everybody to Time for Ink Asking Artists. This week we have a really special guest on our show, Lalo.
Keep your designer ain't right. Hey, you can keep your chain, keep your whips, keep your designer ain't rocking that shit. Don't pour me no lean, don't drink on that shit, cause you drink on that shit. Boy, I think I'd rather be regular, man. I think I'd rather be me. I think I'd rather be regular, man. I think I'd rather be me.
So I'd like to welcome everybody on the show today, Lalo.
Lalo Junda, yeah. It's in Spanish, so you say it Lalo.
Lalo. Okay.
Yeah.
My mistake.
Although Lalo too, but it's fine. It's totally cool.
Okay. I'm sure a lot of people in the States messed that up, huh?
Oh yeah, they call my friends make fun of me like it's still Lalo Yonder.
Gotcha. And how long
I'm fine with it, you know.
How long have you been living in the States?
I've been living in the States for 18 years. Very similar story to you. Like, I never went there to stay. I went there. The main reason was because I'm first generation of tattoo artists in Colombia, which means we didn't have anybody to learn from. And, you know, this is before the internet.
Mm-hmm.
There was no tattoo shops. There was nothing like that. So I went to New York because I wanted to go to a place where tattooing had been around for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to study too. I went to study painting there. So I was going to school there for 5 years. And then by the end of 5 years, life was going on pretty good. Like tattooing was doing great. And I was painting and selling a lot. You know, like I had a pretty cool life that I didn't want to give up. You know, like I've never been the kind of, you know, I have a lot of friends who their dream is to move to New York.
Uh-huh.
Like I actually don't care so much about big cities. I'm more this type of place, as you can see here in the background. But life was going so good. Let me know if the music is a birthday. I mean, I was lucky enough to be quarantined in a hotel.
Yeah.
So I'm quarantined with like 30 people, which is amazing. Is the music good or not?
I mean, I honestly don't even hear it.
Oh, okay, then that's good. So that's why I went to New York. I went to New York because of tattooing, and I ended up staying because, you know, professional life was going good. You know, like I was happy with what was happening with my tattoos. You know, beyond money, the economical part of it. You know, like it was just like how much I was learning. I was becoming friends with the people I admire and I looked up to, and same thing with painting. So I stayed and I've been there 18 years.
And how has your work changed over the year? How has your art changed over the years? Or is it pretty much still now similar to what it was before? Because you do like a mix of realism and I would say like abstract, yeah? I read somewhere you have your own for it now.
Yeah, magic realism, I call it. And I didn't even think too much. I'm not someone who thinks too deep about coming up with things. I'm more the kind of person who believes in discovering things. Mm-hmm. Like, I am more about like, just do it. And if you feel the need, then try to analyze it and explain it, you know? Mm-hmm. So one time when I was doing the show for Ink Master, they asked me, what's your style? And I was like, magic realism. And what I meant by that is like, if you know the literary movement, magic realism is stories that you read and you think they are not real, but they actually happen in some places in the world. You know, like, is that magic that still we can find somewhere outside of Babylon, let's call it. So my style, dude, you know, I've been tattooing like 26 years now. So of course it has changed so much because the industry and the art and the technology involved have changed so much, you know, like before, you know, it was just more like a tattoo industry, the whole tattoo industry 26 years ago, it was 90% flash. you were just copying things from magazines or flash like that, and you got good at it, and then the next step was like, oh, let me study some art. Then you got better at it, and you started putting your twist into things, but it was still pretty much flash. And then I started getting my own style because, you know, I studied painting and all that, so my tattoos were more painterly, and people were coming to me for my style. And I did a lot of realism, so I started incorporating realism into like standard.
Yeah, we're back.
Cool. So I don't know where you lost me, but just to complete the idea is like, basically I kept doing what most people was doing, you know, like koi fish sleeves and things like that, but with my twist, because, you know, I was doing more realism and things like that. And people was coming for my style, but it was not really my style yet. And then I remember, um, with painting, I was in painting school, and, you know, like my OCD brain was going to tattooing. And painting for me was liberation. And I went to a very academic school where I learned anatomy and perspective and all these things. I went to school in Cuba for 3 years to learn all these things. And then when I came to New York, I was like, okay, I'm going to put those things aside for painting, because I realized that that was not letting me evolve in composition and color. So I focused on composition and color, and I ended up doing, without knowing, abstract expressionism. And I enjoyed it a lot, and I started doing a lot of it, and it was freedom, you know, like so much freedom. Like I wasn't thinking about making clients happy. I had no clients. I was just painting for myself. I started experimenting with like wood, other materials and all that. And that got me a lot of grants and scholarships in school, and I started selling a lot. And everybody in school were like, oh my God, you're so free. You have such a style. How do you do it? And I was like, I just follow my heart, whatever, you know? But then I tried to do that with tattooing, and it was such a difficult switch, because of course tattooing involves another person's idea, another person's taste, and money, you know? Because paintings, you sell them after they finish, or at least what I was doing. So doing the switch was difficult. Like it was so difficult. Like everybody at school were like, oh, you're so free with your painting. And I was like, I want to do that with my tattoos. So I tried to start doing what I was doing on my paintings and tattoos, but it took me years to really like, because what I was doing was abstract, and then for me it was missing something. And then in the meantime, I was doing a lot of realism when a lot of people wasn't doing realism. So I was pretty busy doing that, but I also got bored of just copying photos, you know, like after the challenge of knowing that you can do it, then it's just like, and then someday it just clicked, you know. Also because it was difficult to convince your clients of ideas unless you show them a photo. And even when you show them a design or a photo, if they haven't seen it on the skin, it's very difficult for them to imagine. So, you know, before my sketches were very loose, and I would show people and they were like, yeah, go for it. But once I tried to change the style, people were like, nah, no. And now I get it, you know, because now usually when I do my designs, the designs are way more close to the finished product. So it was the moment when I put together what I did with painting and the realism, but without being a slave of the realism, you know, without more than being a slave of the realism, using realism as a strength and as a weapon, you know, like, so that's always the wow factor in my tattoos. Wow factor, then some graphic bullshit and painterly, and like if I would break down all my tattoos, I break them down to 3 layers, like a background, graphic or painterly, and wow factor, you know. But it took a while, and I actually recently posted a photo of the two tattoos that kind of finally started the whole thing. That I finally did it on some people, and then when I posted them, people were more like, "Oh, I want more like that. I want more like that." Because you know, you gotta remember, 10 years ago there was probably if probably 10 styles of tattooing, you know, and it was difficult for people to think outside of that. And now there's so many styles and so much shit done. And you know, like 15 years ago, if your tattoo didn't have an outline, it was not a good tattoo. You know, like people were like, "Well, that's not," you know. So So yeah, so that's how I found my style, and that's oh yeah, and wait, another big step for me doing that was I was on my path of finding my own style, but I was still doing like koi fishes and the same ideas everybody was doing. And then I see the work of Volko and Simone,
Mm-hmm.
Buena Vista Tattoo Club, and it just blew my mind, man. It blew my mind in a way that I was like, I want to be them when I grow up. Like they were doing only their shit, no compromises, no nothing, like all the aesthetic of what they were doing and the size, and like they were painters on skin.
Mm-hmm.
And it inspired me, but it frustrated me so much too, because I was like, I want to do that, but I didn't want to do what they were doing. I wanted to do my own thing, but I still hadn't found my own thing. And I actually did a few pieces very inspired in them, and they still inspire me a lot. And they actually started following me not so long ago, which I'm pretty stoked about.
Okay.
I even took a screenshot, and I forgot to post it. I mean, way before this, way before they follow me, I met them in a convention in Berlin many years ago, in Berlin, no, close to Berlin. And it was just like mind blowing. And they invited me to go and do a guest spot there, but because of my visa, I couldn't end up doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But they were the first ones that I was like, wow. And then I started seeing mostly like European artists with their own style, like, oh, I do this and that's what I do, and fuck it. And and that was a very difficult thing to do in the start. Nowadays, I feel like it's the only way to be successful. Like people is gonna come to you because you're special. Some years ago, people would come to you because you did solid color and solid lines.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's some tattoo artists out there that technically they are not good at all, but they do shit that resonates with people. You
Mm-hmm.
can call it trendy shit, whatever. Some of them are good, some of them are really not good, but they have like a huge following, and you try to get tattooed with them, and it's impossible, and they charge a lot of money. And me as a tattoo artist know that their tattoos are going to look like shit in 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen a lot of them traveling around the world, and I'm like, oh, I was right, it looks like shit. But people come to you because you're special, so I feel like when you're a good tattooer, you got to find the balance between your style and like what really is your inner voice, which is going to make you special.
And do your clients usually let you have some artistic freedom when you do the tattoos now? Then, because like you were saying before, people wanted, they would come to you, they say, I want this, and
Yeah,
you're super strict about it. Because I always feel like when I get tattooed, like I have my idea that I present to the artist, but of course he's gonna change stuff up and do it that way. And I figured, look, he's the professional. I might as well go the route they kind of suggest, as opposed to me nitpicking every single little thing. And I think a lot of people
actually,
do that, especially when they're getting their first or second tattoo, when they haven't been doing it that long.
yeah, definitely. You want to show? Let me show you. Okay, now there's this guy. He's working with a tattoo I finished last night, and he has two pieces that would respond to your question. So basically, um, nowadays I have a lot of freedom. Like I work
Uh-huh.
for it. Like I have enough portfolio to. I break it down when people do a consultation with me. I have like, okay, one of the questions I ask them is like, which one of my tattoos you want your tattoo to look like?
Okay.
So that gives me an idea. And part of the consultation process says that they gotta give me creative freedom. Like I'll take their idea, but they have to let me do it my way. I still like sit down with them and choose references and things like that, but
Uh-huh.
more and more now I have creative freedom. And I also I also do my own designs, like completely like my own, like a painting. Like I want to do that, I want to do that, but I want to do that. And when clients come to me, I ask them like, would you be interested to see down the things that I really want to do, and maybe you choose something from there. And many times people choose it. you know, and I'm pushing that more now. I'm trying to push. So you know, tattooing is always you know, the artistic part and the struggle, you know, like you gotta find a balance, and you gotta know how to communicate what you want, and you gotta be able to sacrifice certain things to steer your creativity into the direction where you want to go, which many times means like less money, but maybe that's just going to be for a short period of time, because once you do your shit, if it's good, more people are going to come and you're going to be more busy, and then you have more room to play, and people, and you have more credibility. So yeah, right now I have, and that's why I wanted to show, because actually when you were asking me, there's this guy walking right in front of me who I finished the second piece on his calves. I can send you a photo of that when we're done.
Okay.
And both of them are completely my design, you know. And you know, we are living so crazy times right now that I got lucky that I got locked in with a bunch of people,
So
and
you got all
everybody
your
wants
tattoo
tattoos.
equipment there with you?
Yeah, everything.
Okay.
I have like I can tattoo in the airport. When I travel with my tattoo equipment, I have a suitcase, everything I need. You know, like printer, like even paper towels. You know, like because it happened to me in the past that a tattoo show, and I was like, oh, I'll buy paper towels. There must be a pharmacy close to it, and then I realized the closest pharmacy was like 20, 30 miles away, a $60 cab ride. Like I remember one time in Chicago, I was going to this show in Chicago, and it happened. The show wasn't in Chicago; it was like 60 miles away from Chicago, and the closest pharmacy was something like I remember I paid $80 round trip for a cab to buy paper towels.
Oh shit.
Yeah, so I
Some
travel with
paper
everything.
towels.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, man. Like these days, I'm lucky. I'm lucky to do what I want, you know. And but you gotta push it. You gotta push it, and you gotta like be smart how you do it, and not compromise what you don't want to compromise. You know, like yeah. No, I could talk about this for hours, but I think I answered your question.
Yeah, you did. The other thing I was wondering, what's it mean to be first generation Colombian tattooer? There was no tattooers before? There's not like a big tattoo culture in Colombia?
Well, now there's a big tattoo culture now,
Uh-huh.
but when I'm talking about, I around 1993, 1994, and there was one tattoo shop city, which is the capital, and it's a 10 million people city. 10 million people, one tattoo shop, and it was really a hole in the wall. And tattoos were not popular at all. Only people in the army or in jail would get tattoos. And when I started tattooing, like I started hand poking, I was a kid.
Hmm.
I didn't even know that shop existed. And this was a guy from Belgium, you know, one of those Europeans who was traveling Latin America and loved Colombia
Hmm.
for the party. And he was a great dude, but he wasn't a great tattoo artist. But he was the only one. Later on, I got by him, and later on, I was working at his shop every now and then, like covering when he wasn't there, which was a big honor for me. But it means that we didn't have anybody to learn from, you know, and there was no books, there was no internet, there was no tutorials.
Hmm.
So basically, we just went for it, you know. And it also means that it wasn't like I decided like, oh, I want to be a tattoo artist. It was more like one day I was just bored out of my mind, and I did a stick and poke on me because I saw it in the video. I did a
Hmm.
stick and poke, and I feel like even after that, can you see me? Even after that, and what else about being first generation tattoo artist? So it was difficult, man. It was really difficult. There was no information, and as I said, I just did a stick and poke on me, and then I went and showed it next day to school, and everybody was like, or not everybody, but my friends were like, I want one. I was like, fuck it. I was 16 years old. I was like, oh, let's go, let's go.
Hmm.
And then suddenly I tattooed a few of them, and then they were like, I started tattooing their friends, and then their friends, and then somebody asked me how much, and I was like, what, money? And I did stick and poke and I had no clue. It wasn't like, it took me a while to even figure out how to do good stick and poke.
Mm-hmm.
But I got to do very complex stuff with stick and poke, and then thanks to one of those tattoos, I was traveling with my girlfriend at that time, very close from here, actually, like 2 hours from here, where the ATMs are, in a city, and there was this like hippie Italian traveling tattoo artist. Like I saw somebody walk with a fresh tattoo with colors. That was the other thing. Before that, it was only like black ink. I only had black ink, and I wasn't getting ink tattooing. I was breaking down the ball pens, the pens, like big, taking that ink and tattooing with that. Then Indian ink, and then I met this Italian dude, and he showed me how to do a homemade machine, and he also showed me this type of color ink, which wasn't tattooing. It was for like pens. And then I was doing color tattoos.
Gotcha.
And then I did a homemade machine with a boombox, a motor, a spoon, and a pen. And I'm not proud to say it, but I was 16-year-old kid. And it's not that I didn't know. I just didn't give a fuck because I was like a punk rock kid.
Mm-hmm.
And we just clean everything with alcohol and reuse everything again because being clean and sterile was being a pussy back then. Gotcha. Of course, I don't condone that behavior, but that's how it was. I was tattooing without gloves for like the first year because gloves were too expensive for me. Mm-hmm. Also you got to keep in mind that I was doing this in a third world country behind my parents' back because they couldn't know that I was tattooing because tattooing was for prostitutes and thieves. Uh-huh. So I would be tattooing in my bedroom, and I would clean with no gloves, and I would clean with brandy, like cognac. Mm-hmm. We would be drinking and using the same bottle to clean, and then if I heard my mom's car, that's it. Session was over. Like, blah, 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 blah. So I guess my mom thought that at that time I was just partying a lot, and she didn't realize I was tattooing until she found out. My dad didn't find out I was tattooing until I left, because he was worried that I was broke, that I was, because I left traveling Middle East and Europe with no money, backpacking. And then he was really worried, and my mom one day said, "Don't worry, man. He's tattooing. He's making money tattooing." And my dad, he's a finance guy, so he was like, "Oh, he's good." And then when I came back, he just looked at my tattoos and he was like, "What else?" But he wasn't very proud, and it wasn't nothing he liked. But then around that time, they opened the borders of Colombia, because Colombia used to be the economy was pretty closed. Mm-hmm. So there was not a lot of external brands or anything like that. But you would see them on TV, But then suddenly they opened the commercial borders, and Harley Davidsons started coming into Colombia. And my dad loved bikes all the time. And by that time, my dad had money, so he bought some bikes. And it was funny because bikers in Colombia were actually wealthy executive men who wore leather in the weekends. Uh-huh. He was not like the biker. He was more like, I want to look like these Hollywood dudes. So it was funny because my dad was kind of embarrassed of me doing tattoos, and he was hoping. And even at this time, I thought I was gonna do something different. Like one day I was gonna grow up and do something different. But then all these Harley Davidson guys, they wanted, I want to get tattoos. And at that time, they opened the first shops in New York. This is in Bogota. This is after I came back from the Middle East. And suddenly these dudes he was trying to be cool with, they were like, "Oh my God, your son is a tattoo artist. Awesome." And then suddenly I was cool. And then suddenly my dad was like showing me off. But still, even then, he was like, there was something he wasn't very convinced about it. And I was spending all my money in partying. Mm-hmm. So he didn't see me building a future. So he was like, he's going to grow up. And then after the years, I think it's after the first time he came to visit me in New York, after probably 12 years of me living there, the first time he came to visit me. he saw how I lived, and he was like, "Oh, you're good." And then, of course, social media now, because that's the other thing. Like, I used to, most of my friends were not tattoo people. The people I was partying with and all that, it was just regular people. And me myself, I didn't have many tattoos because I'm very picky.
Mm-hmm.
So they just thought I was doing names and tribals all day. And then when social media came out and I started posting my work, people that I've been partying with for like 4 years were like, "Oh my God, like you're an artist." And I'm like, "Oh yeah." Or like, it was funny when people ask like, "So what do you do?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm a tattoo artist." And people are like, "Oh, that's awesome. But what do you do for a living?" I'm like, "I'm a tattoo artist." "And do you work every day?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you gotta book 3 months in advance, and like, it's funny because I like scuba diving, and it's not a cheap sport.
Uh-huh.
And I've been lucky to scuba dive in like exotic places, like it takes a lot to get there and it's expensive. So it's always these boats full of like Swiss, Germans, and rich Americans.
Mm-hmm.
And I was always that kid. I was younger than most of them because everybody was I'm in my 40s now, but this is when I was in my 20s.
Uh-huh.
And they would be looking at me like, and there was always that question like, "So what do you do?" And I'm like, "Tattoos." "Oh, nice. What do you do for a living?" And I'm like, "Oh, tattoos." And they're like, "Oh shit." "And do you work every day?" I'm like, "Motherfucker, I'm diving here with you in the fucking Philippines, thousands of miles away from where I'm from. I think I'm doing pretty good." So it's been a long path, It was, I feel like, for the first 10 years of me tattooing, I didn't even think I was gonna be doing this for a living, and I wasn't. And a lot of people would ask me like, "So what are you gonna do?" And honestly, when I moved to New York, I thought I was gonna end up working on set design for movies and commercials. But tattooing was doing very well, and I remember just before I moved to New York, my mom was like, "Don't go, blah blah blah. Let's do something here. Let's do a business together." And I was like, "Mom, because you're like, I don't know if this tattooing thing is gonna work." And I was like, "Well, there's only one way to find out, and if I don't believe in it, nobody else is gonna believe in it."
Of course.
And I took it super serious. Like at some point, tattoos. Back when I started tattooing, all you needed was a tattoo machine and 2 bottles of alcohol, and you were the cooler guy in 20 blocks around.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't need it to be good. People would still get tattooed with you because there was no more people. But then at some point, I took it serious, and I went like I could always draw, and I always liked drawing. But then I went to study, and I went to and I read fucking very difficult books to read about pigments, about chemistry of pigments, about all this stuff that would make me a better tattoo artist. And I took it like a tattoo university, on my own. Now the problem is that there is too much information. Now the problem is to find information that is the best. But back then was there was no information until Hawk Spalding came out with that Tattooing A to C book.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you know which one I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
That you can tell the history of tattooing before and after that book. It exploded. He had an ad. I think he still has an ad on a lot of tattoo magazines, print magazines. On the back, the cover, on the other side, has like for the book Tattooing A to C, and it was how to tattoo. And I remember it was a very expensive book for me, and I gathered the money, probably stealing change from my parents. I gathered the money to get a cousin who lived in Miami
Mm-hmm.
to get it for me without my uncle knowing, because my uncle was gonna snitch on me if he knew I was buying a book about how to tattoo. It was like a whole 4-month process to get a book. And luckily I spoke English, and that made a difference. I feel like that's one of the things that pushed me ahead of the rest of the people in Colombia,
Mm-hmm.
was because I could read in English. So just reading this book made me so much better, because I even had friends like years later, they would still struggling with the book and paying someone who was not a tattoo artist, whose English wasn't that good, to translate the book for them.
Okay.
And so yeah, that's what it was to be a first generation tattoo artist. It was just, like, honestly, I feel like if I would have started tattooing 8 years ago, with a good apprenticeship and all that, I probably would be better than I am now, because I would have not, I would have been fresher, I would have not struggled so much, and I'm not saying that all those years went to waste. Those years were great, and that's how it was back then. Mm-hmm. But it's like, now you see some kids that you are like, who the fuck are you? 2,000 followers, and look at your tattoos, and how old are you? 21? And I'm like, fuck you, it took me like 15 years to get where you are, and you are like, you've been tattooing for 2 years and you're killing it. But that's the same with everything, like,
yeah, I mean, internet, all it takes is one thing to go viral,
and evolution is going way faster.
Yeah. Enjoy the paradise you're in.
Peace. My hard life.
Yeah. All the palm trees and fresh fruit hanging.
Yeah. Okay, brother. Hey, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Take care.
Yeah, take care.
Okay.
Peace. Everybody for tuning into this week's episode of Ask an Artist. If you like this episode and want to see more, make sure you hit like, subscribe, and check us out next week for more. Till next time. Peace.
Hey, you can keep your chain, keep your whips, keep your designer, ain't rocking that shit. Don't pour me no lean, don't drink on that shit, cause you drink on that shit. Boy, I think I'd rather be regular, man. I think I'd rather be me. I think I'd rather be regular, man. I think I'd rather be me.